Good morning.
Turn our music off. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Liz.
Hi. Everyone got a cup of tea?
I got water today. Got a
Oh,
cuppa. Mm.
Coffee for me every time.
yeah, I got coffee actually.
Thanks for joining us, Lindsay. So, I will hand over to two of you to introduce yourselves briefly. I think you've met. If anyone's watched one of these before, you'll know Liz. But Liz, do you want to give a quick intro to yourself again?
Yep, sure. So I work with Sarah. I'm a non-exec, well, I'm an advisor on the board with Tree Law. My background is insurance. I've been in insurance for about 15 years. And I know how to kind of grow businesses. I've been through a business exit, and I'm like a mechanic for businesses. I just love it. And I'm in the process of looking at a new venture. So that's part of what I do. So I will now hand back.
Thank you, Liz. And Lindsay, do you want to say hi to everyone and give a little bit of information about you?
Sure. So hi everybody, and Sarah, Liz, thank you very much for inviting me along to your tree break. Very excited. My background is I'm a professional indemnity lawyer, but I'm also what I call a B Corp enthusiast. So what I mean is that I look to find opportunities to promote the B Corp movement, and specifically I look at professional service firms because of my background and see where I can sort of add value, educate, inspire, assist them in their B Corp journey. And I got involved with B Corp because I was studying for an executive MBA and came across the B Corp certification scheme and its movement, and straight away it appealed to me. Its values just resonated with me, and it was primarily because it's sort of a practical, achievable way that businesses can make a real impact and help solve some of the economic issues that I perceived. And so I engaged in a research dissertation, primarily focused on B Corps within the legal services industry. And that was because although the B Corp, sorry, I've already gone on, because B Corp had been so
You're
phenomenally
so
successful.
enthusiastic about it. If anyone hasn't guessed, we're talking about B Corps today.
Yeah. Carry on.
Oh, I do say to her, don't get me onto B Corp. She won't be able to stop me. So B Corps had been so phenomenally successful, but yet they didn't seem to be the same number of law firms in particular that had taken up B Corp certification. So I wanted to get under the hood of that and find out of those firms that had taken that step, what was their drivers, what was their motivation, what was their benefits. And then from that moment, I just became a B Corp fan. Have done some additional trainings so that I can get really into the mechanics of the business impact assessment, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And there it has all started, and I think that's hence how I came across you two on LinkedIn. The magic of LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, we're both interested, aren't we, in the B Corp journey? But let's go back a step. Tell us what a B Corp is, just for people that might not know.
Yeah, sure. So B Corp is well, they're businesses that do aim to make a profit, but they also have heightened social and environmental sustainability standards. So they're essentially businesses which you may hear referred to as having a triple bottom line approach or a people, planet, profit approach to business. But B Corp really is a movement, and it was established in 2006 by three friends in the US, which, because of their sort of business experience in the past, really felt that business should be used as a force for good. And so they set up this B Corp movement. And the premise of it really is that the current economic system creates various negative impacts for people, planet, and the community. And look, the evidence of that is abundant, isn't it? You know, it's everywhere. We're consuming the earth's resources 2.5 times over every year. The unequitable distribution of wealth, you know, the list goes on. And you turn the TV on every day, don't you? And you see something new. But the B Corp movement seeks to kind of change the basis of the economic system. And it does that by targeting what it calls the reinforcing factors. So it lobbies governments for change. In the UK, that's primarily through the Better Business Act. It seeks to change business behaviours and the narrative around what business success is. So it does that by amplifying credible stories of businesses that pursue a sustainable business agenda. And what it's most well known for is driving its B Corp certification. So that is B Corp in a nutshell.
Yeah. And they're popping up all over the place, aren't they? I know the Triodos Bank is a B Corp. There are insurance like Simply Business, that's a B Corp. There are already law firms, aren't there? They are everywhere. It's kind of ESG on steroids, it feels like. And it's a brilliant, brilliant movement.
I think we should have that as its tagline. So yeah, there were 7,300 B Corps worldwide in 93 countries, and the UK has just topped 1,500 B Corps.
Wow.
And I think one of the most incredible facts about it is that 50% of that have just become B Corps in the last 12 months. So the growth of B Corp has just been exponential. And I don't know if the awareness is necessarily there yet, but it's definitely getting there. And as soon as you know about it, you do see that B, that bold
Mm.
B everywhere.
Mm. It's certainly something that I see a lot of, especially in the, with the network I've got, some ecologist companies, etc., will have B Corp accreditation. And it's something that I've wanted to do for Tree Law as a business since I launched. But I think, and you'll know all the details on this, Lindsay, that a business needs to be a certain age before it can go ahead and apply for that B Corp accreditation.
Yeah, so this probably leads on to two points really. So yeah, in order to become a B Corp, you need to have data of your ESG for 12 months. You have to have been trading in that people, planet, profit type of way for at least 12 months. And that's because it is a very tricky, difficult validation process. You have to supply evidence in support of your answers. So shall I just tell you about how you get to be a B Corp? Because it probably will put that into context, sort of the process. So
Go ahead.
the B Corp certification scheme is the only independent, internationally recognized, verified certification that evaluates environment, social, and governance structures of the business. So it's the gold standard when it comes to ESG. But I'm going to go with your byline of it's ESG on steroids in future. So certification is assessed through what it calls the B impact assessment, and I'll refer to it as the BIA because it's just easier. And the BIA is free to access for any business. You can go on today, go and have a look at the questionnaire set. And in this initial phase, all your answers are confidential, and it assesses 5 areas of business practice and impact. So it's looking at governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. And it asks about 200 questions. And in order to be successful with a B Corp certification, you need to score at least 80 points. When you're answering the questions, you go through a validation process and you must supply robust data in support of your actions over the last 12 months. So hence it is something that you must have been trading in this way for some time. But I'll talk about B Corp pending in a minute, which is slightly different. One of the key points I think that's worth mentioning is that businesses must change their articles of association or their partnership deed if they have one to expressly adopt this triple bottom line approach. And they should also sign the declaration to say that they support the B Corp movement. It's basically saying to the outside world that you are committed to a stakeholder approach to the way you run your business, as opposed to the more traditional shareholder supremacy approach to business.
Yeah.
There is a fee to pay. Nothing in life is free. It's never free. The starting point is £1,000 for businesses that have a turnover of less than 150k a year. If, however, and Liz, I know this might be interested for you because I know you're setting up a business. If you're a startup and you're committed to running your business within the spirit of the B Corp practices, then you can become what's a B Corp pending, and that's when you don't have that 12 like it. But you don't have that 12 months worth of evidence. But what that does is it gives you access to some of the benefits which I think the B Corp certification scheme gives you. And one of the best benefits that was reported to me during my research was the access to the B Corp network. And it was actually the thing that surprised most of the B Corps the most. And what that is the B Corp organise loads of socials. So they call them B socials, beehives. They're all over the country, geographically arranged, industry arranged. But I think what stands them out is the level of engagement you have from people who are B Corps and the members of the B Corp community. They're incredibly enthusiastic. And as you can tell, I'm sort of an ambassador of that kind of enthusiasm. They're very engaged, very much like talking about how they've navigated their way through certain issues, what they've come across. And so it's a source of sort of fantastic inspiration, I think, and support. And so I think that B Corp pending
Really
is still
useful, isn't
worth
it?
going
Very
for.
useful. Yeah, definitely, definitely. It feels like that it's probably a much easier kind of jump for a smaller company because obviously you, as you mentioned, you have to change like your memorandum of, you know, your association of your articles and stuff like that. So if you're a big company, you'd need to get all your shareholder approval, but obviously for a startup, you could just start up that way, couldn't you? And it would be within your kind of value system, and you would be like that from the start. So do you think it's easier for a startup, or is it, or do bigger companies manage to reverse kind of engineer their structure to become a B Corp?
I think that's a really great question. It's probably not one I've really thought about before, if I'm honest. So it was great provocation, I think. B Corp certification, I don't think it's easy regardless.
Mm,
It is a tricky process to go through, particularly that validation process. There's a lot of evidence that you need to produce. And it is a pain point, but I think it's a pain point that's really important to give the standard its credibility and its meaningfulness, and means that not
mm,
everybody can get through it. And I think you, Liz, you sort of hit the nail on the head in that with existing firms, they've got to get the buy-in from their senior leadership team and their
mm,
CEO. And my research really highlighted that having that senior leader that was committed to sustainable business was really pivotal to the success of their B Corp journey. And that's because you do need that senior leadership team to
mm.
drive through the changes that are going to be necessary, that they're going to need to approve, data collection methods, etc. And if you're just looking at this as a marketing opportunity, then you're not going to be able to make the changes
No.
or bring this into your business's core values in the way that you have to in order to be successful in its journey. So I think you're right. If you're a business startup, you get that opportunity to be born good,
Mm,
for want of a nicer
mm.
phrase. You get to recruit people that already reflect your business's
Yeah.
values and how you want to pursue, as opposed to persuading your existing colleagues. But there have been some great examples of existing businesses becoming B Corp, and actually think probably the majority of them are existing businesses that have
Mm,
have made the transition. And even sort of in traditional partnership structures, which professional service firms are often,
mm,
and there's that dispersed distribution, isn't there, of decision making power, they're still able to pull that round. And a great example is a full service law firm of Brabner's. And I spoke to them, and their journey was um, quite effortless, they reported,
wow.
in turning that partnership round, because they were already doing great things.
Mm,
They had a senior leadership team that just got it. They just
mm,
understood and were very close to their ESG activities anyway. And so it wasn't as challenging as perhaps you might perceive.
mm. Yeah, that's really good. Do you think there's sort of low-hanging fruit? I know it's a bit of a cheeky question, but say if you're starting out on this journey, are there any bits that are easier to get accredited on than others? Like, where do you think people should start to kind of ease themselves in?
I really dislike the phrase low hanging fruit, but I do know where you're coming from. I really do. I
Sorry,
do. It's one
Quick
of those things we
wins.
all quick wins that's what we
I'm
want, isn't it?
Is that
impatient.
worse?
I want everything yesterday.
Don't we all? Yes, there are. And there are also actions that give you more rewards. So you get more bang for your buck, in a sense. And as I said, when you go into the BIA, anybody can do it. You don't need a consultant or a coach or anyone to start your B Corp journey. But I think it's probably here that having somebody who's familiar with the BIA is helpful, because it's not the most user friendly tool. And when you've got sort of a more intimate knowledge of the BIA, then they're able to direct you to those questions which are called gating questions that open other opportunities to score more points, and help you direct perhaps where you're going to put your time and attention. My coaching would be to actually look at the BIA and look at the actions that are going to have most impact for people and planet, because that's the point of
Yeah.
what we're trying to achieve. And the BIA is dynamic, so certain questions are only asked in certain circumstances. So, for example, do you have a breastfeeding policy? Well, that's not going to be asked for a business that only has one employee, but it would be if such a much bigger business, and that would be, I suspect, an example of that sort of low hanging fruit for a lot of
Yeah.
businesses. What my recommendation would be, and what I try to do, is look at those actions that best align with your business values and focus on those, because they're inevitably going to be the thing, I think, that's going to be easier for you to get over the line, because
Yeah.
they're resonating with you much more.
Definitely.
One of the benefits that the firms that I spoke to reported to me was just how useful they found the BIA. So they found it quite, it had great utility in terms of they were already engaging in some great ESG activities, and they just wanted that validation that they were on the right path and they were doing the right thing. But it also helped them direct where they might make their future decisions. What areas did they need to focus on? They were fantastic perhaps in the social space, for an example, but actually when looking in the mirror that the BIA gave them, they weren't so great in the environmental space, and the BIA helped direct them to have a look at that, and also then guide their decision making, and what actions they could take that would make real impact. So it's a very useful tool, and there are lots of quick wins, easy points to score. But I think that the great utility of it is it really helps you as business leaders. You've got loads of difficult business decisions to make, in directing your time to those that are going to really make impact for you in a way that reflects your business's values.
So is Tree Law starting off on the B Corp accreditation journey? So I have signed into the B impact assessment. It's like a dashboard thing. So sorry, my terminology is going to sound really basic now. So I've signed up to that. So I've sort of logged on, signed up, become a user, and I've started to go through the questions. So as sort of a new entrant or new starter to that, what would you suggest I do first? Sort of familiarize myself with it, or focus on one sort of area? Because going into it, it feels quite overwhelming when you go into
Yeah.
it and see all the different sections and all the different questions.
I was going to ask you, Sarah, how did you find that? Because I think it does seem quite overwhelming. There's a lot of questions there, aren't there? Um, the first point of any journey really is to get your baseline. Where are you right now, based on how you're behaving right now?
That
Sorry,
your
my
dog
dog
I'm
has
just glad
just
that's
been
not
picked up.
mine.
I'm just muting myself while my dog gets picked up.
I would suggest that you take it section by section. Um, Give yourself an hour to do the governance section, for example. Just work through the questions, answering them based on your current business activity as best you can. Um, got any questions? More than happy to sort of help interpret, because some of the questions do seem a bit tricksy, don't they? It's like, what are they really asking? There is an information tab in when you go into each question. There's an information tab and a further guidance tab. Um, do it based on your existing business. Bookmark those questions where, well, I'm not really doing anything, but actually that doesn't seem too hard. That looks like something I could do. And there's a little tab in the right hand corner where you can bookmark that. So once you've been through, and it will take a few hours, I said this is not an easy process. Go through each section at a time, and I would leave a bit of time in between so you don't get overwhelmed. And then you come back and think about, okay, these are the actions I've done. This is the long list of those actions that don't scare me. Could I do that? How? And then you start building an action plan off the back of that. Okay, how will I be able to answer that? What evidence will I need? How am I going to collect that evidence? And you just start making an action plan and taking it step by step. Don't try and eat. There's a phrase that don't eat the whole elephant at once or something.
Something like that.
It's horrible phrase, isn't it?
How do you eat an elephant? Small bites.
Oh, don't eat an elephant. An elephant's my spirit animal. But one thing that I found and I find this a lot when doing any sort of compliance stuff, is you get asked an awful lot of detail about how your firm's complying with X, Y, and Z. And I think, well, yes, if my firm were bigger, I would be doing, I would be, cascading information down to my team and ensuring there was this policy and that policy. But because there isn't a team of that size yet, that's not something that I've done. So that's, do I look at the size that I am today, or do I look at the size that I hope to be in, 6, 12 months and create policies for employees that I'll have in the future, for example?
And I think that depends on your date that you were going to want to submit your application for through the validation process, because it will be viewing your answers and evidence based on the last 12 months. So I would be saying, yes, you've got to look into the future. If you've got a target date that you're going to be doing this in 6 months' time, entering that validation process, then how big do you think you're going to be, and work on making sure you've got your policies and processes in place for that point of time. So it's really identifying that key date. And a lot of that will depend on what was your baseline score. So you've been through it. Yes, these are the things I do. You might have 75 points already, as an example. And those actions to get those extra sort of 5, I would always try and aim for sort of 85 points rather than just on the note. So how scary are those additional actions? How much is that? How hard are they going to be for you? And that might push your timeline as to whether this is really achievable in this next 6 months, or whether you're going to need to give yourself a little bit more bandwidth on that.
How many points do you find like an average, very, ESG focused company would have to start as a baseline? Do you think they would start off of like 40 points? Just an average.
I'm not sure I know, if I'm being entirely honest with you, Liz, because I think every business is very different.
Yeah.
And
they might be thinking about it, but might have not have done it. So it might be a quick thing to do, but they might not quite be there or something. It might need a tweak.
Yeah, and a lot of businesses, I think, engage in great ESG, but they're not necessarily doing the evidence collecting that is needed to be successful in that answer. So I just think it depends. It depends how sophisticated the company is, how far they are on their journey, how data orientated they may be, and I honestly think it depends on too many different variables that I don't have a real answer for you.
So my background is finance, so I'm kind of thinking about the commercials of this. I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant from an ESG perspective. It's a no-brainer, and I think all companies should be working towards this. However, I think there's a great return on investment as well, because I'm thinking it could help with things like, tenders, gaining contracts, even like valuations. I think this could push underlying profitability upwards just because you're a B Corp. And I know it wouldn't be this, it shouldn't be the reason why companies do this, but I think there could be real value in doing this. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think most businesses that embark on this, has got to be a business case that sits with it, hasn't there? And the B Corp, B Lab have done some great research into assessing the performance of SME B Corps when compared to their non-B Corp SMEs. And they found that on average, B Corps have faster growth in terms of turnover and employee headcount, have greater levels of employee retention, and higher levels of innovation, which if you're an SME, that I think they're quite powerful performance statistics. My research obviously focused specifically on law firms, but I do think that the findings of that have wider applications for professional service firms. And in addition to the utility of the BIA in terms of validating your behaviours, assisting with continuous improvement, access to that community, which I think are all soft benefits, aren't they, that are likely to help promote the prospects of your business. One of them, the main benefits that they reported was that they they could pinpoint that B Corp certification helped them attract, retain, and engage talent. Which, when you're a professional service firm,
Mm.
that's your
That's key.
key
Yeah.
factor,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You are about
Mhm.
your people,
It's your main
and
overhead.
Mm.
and they're who's your success. They're
Yeah.
it's their knowledge bank that is that's giving you your value that you deliver as a company. So to be able to attract the best in that
Mm.
business um, was really powerful for them. And there's some great research now that supports the idea that people want to work for purpose driven businesses. I think it was a Deloitte study which was focused on millennials and Gen Z, but that they
Mhm.
prioritized working for organizations that would align with their personal values above the more traditional incentives like pension and health insurance.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this is a really powerful part in 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 that space. But in perhaps a more obvious place is that when you're a B Corp, it gives you an ability to communicate how your firm creates its value to your customers in a really clear and
Yeah.
concise way. Customers understand it, they know what it means.
Yeah.
And it gives you a point of differentiation, which when you're working in a really competitive environment and there isn't a significant difference perhaps in the way you're producing what you're producing and your competitor, this gives you that point of differentiation on how you're
Um,
creating your value compared to somebody else.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you talked about tenders and pitches, which I think is a really sort of interesting space because there certainly are more ESG questions being asked in
Mm.
tenders. But I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and those questions are going to become more prevalent, more detailed, and customers are going to start taking more notice of what your ESG
Yeah.
responses look like. And we've already had this concept of social value in public procurement,
Yeah.
large public procurement for quite a long time. That's going to expand. We've got new regulations coming in that are looking very much more towards, your environmental reporting, but also auditors now have to point out if what you're saying in terms of ESG isn't, you're not doing what you say on the tin.
Mm.
So there's going
Yeah.
to be this trickle down effect, and businesses are only going to want to do business with those that reflect their core values. And
Mhm.
so you having
Definitely.
B Corp, which is this gold standard, internationally
Mm.
recognized um, certification, means that you can answer those questions really confidently with evidence. And that's inevitably going to mean you're going to score a bit higher if you're in that tender situation. It means that when you're standing in front of your customers talking about your firm, you talk there with much more confidence
Yeah.
than you
Mm.
might otherwise. And I
No, I
think
love it.
particularly
And I
when
love the
we're in
governance. Sorry, I love the governance aspect as well, which we've not touched on too much. But yeah, I
Mm.
just think it is such a lovely standard to achieve, isn't it? It's just brilliant.
We're coming up to, we've
it
got
is, and
about a minute
when
or
you
so left,
oh,
so we need to round off with a couple of sort of closing remarks. I know we could speak about this for ages, and I think we should probably go ahead and do a follow up. But I know that I'm just at the start of the B Corp journey for Tree Law. Lindsay, you're gonna sort of support me and Tree Law through that. So thank you for that. But do you want to sort of give a quick roundup to anybody that's new to B Corp or thinking about getting going on this as a journey, especially other law firms?
there's some great learning facilities out there. Go on to B Lab. They've got a great training course, which I think is about 3 hours, that introduces you into the B Corp movement. I'd say that's your starting point. Go and have a look, see how it resonates with you. Um, Reach out to other B Corp firms. They are always willing to talk about their B Corp journey. I'm always here if you want to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat to people about it, and have a look at the BIA and go from there. But just learn about it, understand it, and welcome to the journey.
Thank you. Well,
That's
you're a great ambassador for it because you're so enthusiastic. What about you, Liz? Have you got any closing
thank you.
comments?
No, I just love it. I can't wait to watch you on your journey. And I just think it's absolutely fantastic. I just think it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant and a no-brainer.
Well, I will commit then to watching the B Lab 3 hours training then. And then perhaps once I've done the training, then we can catch up again and we can take the next step together. And then anybody that wants to watch can take the next step with us.
Fabulous. Would love
Perfect.
to. It's been great to meet you both, guys. It's fantastic.
Well,
Yeah, thank you very much, Lindsay. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Speak to you all soon. Bye.